Hey, what's up? This is PRP3 The Author, and I want to talk to you about setting fantasy football lineups for beginners. Now, a lot of beginners know about the different games on Sunday, like the early morning games, the midday games, the late night games. They also know about the Monday night football games, but some don't know that there are Thursday night games. And if you don't check your roster to see when your players are going to play, you might realize that you didn't adjust anything and you have a player playing on Thursday, but they were on your bench and they started the game and they're accumulating points that you can't get because you didn't check your roster. Another thing to take into consideration for setting your lineup are injuries, and then there are other unseen, circumstances or other conditions that will come into play that you gotta keep in mind before you start setting your lineups for that week. So for those Thursday, Sunday, Monday night games, you kind of need to look at your rosters like Wednesday night and kind of decide who's going to have good matchups. Because judging by those matchups, that's when you can start putting, starters on your benching your starters. Just because, you have a big star power name person in your starting position, they might be going against a team that has really good defense and a really good secondary. You might have a wide receiver who's on your bench that he's a decent player, but he's going against a really bad defense, and they have horrible cornerbacks. The secondary is nothing, and they have a decent quarterback behind them. You might want to put them in because they might get more points than your original starter would get. So another thing is our injuries. Injuries are important because let's say you have a wide receiver, he's playing Monday night, but he's questionable. He's day to day, did not practice. Coaches are hopeful that players giving statements like, yeah, I want to play. I feel good, but it could turn into a situation where days pass, Sunday passes, they never practice, and they become a game time decision. And then all of a sudden, let's say that person doesn't get to play, or they're limited and they're only going to get a couple reps per quarter, and they end up getting you 0 points. Now, if you know that you have someone who's very questionable, who's not practicing, who has an injury that they probably won't be starting that Monday night game, you might want to adjust your lineup before Monday night happens, because as games start, all your positions lock. If you have not all your position, only the players who are starting that game, those positions will lock. Let's say you have a running back and he's the Thursday night game. As soon as that Thursday night game starts, that running back can no longer be moved. He's stuck wherever he's at. So if he's one of your starting running backs in your starting positions, he'll be there accumulating points. If he's on your bench and let's say Sunday comes around, but you had a Thursday player who's already locked, you can't move them. The waiver wire will start to lock. So available players who are there, as soon as that game starts and their team starts playing, you can't pick them up off the waiver wire anymore. So you need to kind of know who you want to play and have those positions set. Like on Wednesday, maybe you can wait till Sunday. But if you start waiting towards those late Sunday night games, maybe even Monday, you might end up getting a 0 point for that position because you can't move anybody. Now, like I said, if your team starts playing, those players lock. But if you're on a Monday night matchup, and whoever your back wide receivers are, you can kind of pick those guys up and play them because they'll be available before the game starts. But you might end up with the fourth string wide receiver, and you don't want to put that guy in. You might as well just get 0 points by leaving your injured wide receiver in. So injuries are very important that you need to pay attention to. You need to pay attention to the news about who practiced, who didn't practice, what kind of injuries they have, and the prospect of them playing. If they're going to be full when they play, like fully healthy, if they're going to be able to go out there, and play for a bunch of downs, or are they going to be limited and they're not going to get much action. So after you look at what day your players play and what injuries your players have, you also need to start looking at other conditions that exist. Like let's say you might have a player who's suspended and he's on your bench, and if you're not paying attention to that, let's say the suspension ends and you never put that person and he's like a star player, he's going to get 20 points, if he's on your bench, you're going to feel bad because your bench is getting a ton of points, but your starting lineup is getting really bad, really low amount of points, and you're losing because you never checked to see, when suspensions came up. So like suspensions, weather is something you need to worry about, because let's say you have a team who's not playing in a dome, they're playing in a regular field and it's raining, really bad raining. You think quarterbacks are going to be making great passes and receivers will be making, effective catches. Weather is going to affect how players play, especially if you got players who are from warmer areas playing like those winter freezing games, without in the wide open stadiums with no domes and whatnot. So you need to kind of take in consideration, because player effectiveness could drop, and you might want to put a bench player in at that point. It depends, because some players are going to be good regardless, but some players aren't. So after you look at those unforeseen circumstances, then you can kind of get an idea of like, okay, well, this player has a good matchup. There's good weather, nothing to worry about, and he's not injured. It's a no-brainer. You want to start that player. Now, if you're not checking your lineup and you're not setting, you're not setting it, based on who has good matchups, injuries, and other circumstances, you're not going to get many points. People in your league are going to give you a hard time, and the reason why, you held off until now to start playing, while you're a beginner now and not 10 years ago, is because you were worried about things like this happening, like you making bad moves. And so if you want to not make bad moves, you need to stay on top of your team. And that kind of leads me into a recommendation. Don't draft in too many leagues. I've known some people who had fun the first year, and they'll go the next year and draft the total amount of teams Yahoo Fantasy Football Sports lets you draft. They get the total amount of maximum teams that NFL.com and ESPN.com will let you draft. And so they're all over the place. They can't follow up on all the news on all the players. They're not making those adjustments to their lineups. They're not even playing the waiver wire. They're just keeping the players that they have on their teams, on their bench and starting positions. And another reason why, I mentioned the waiver wire is by week 2, 3, or 4, you might have players who are projected to do really bad that season start performing really well. And then if you're not playing the waiver wire, if you're just focused on 32 teams that that you have on 4 different platforms, you might end up with players who are having slumps, and then you're ignoring all the people on the waiver wire you can be picking up. So pay attention to your lineups and set them. Set them on Wednesday night. Look at them again before the game's on Sunday. Look at them before that Monday night game. Read the little information blurbs that pop up, so you know who is feeling good, who's healthy, who was injured, but is gonna, who's fully cleared and they're out of the concussion protocol, because there's just so much going on, and a lot of these coaches won't say anything until like right before the game, and you might not know that you have someone that's not going to start, or you have someone who you think's not going to start. They start. So keep on top of these news releases that you can find on these different websites like CBS Sports, NFL.com. There's a lot of different people, even on Twitter. There's all sorts of information just being released by the day, by the minute, that will help you set your lineups. Now, like I said earlier, some positions it's going to be a no-brainer. You got Antonio Brown, you're going to want to start him a lot. But what I'm talking about is a lot of the ones you need to worry about is maybe not your first top tier wide receiver. You might be wanting to look at your third, your wide receiver 3, or your wide receiver 2, or your running back 2, where you might have Le'Veon Bell as your top running back, but let's say you have a Carlos Hyde as your RB2, and you have an unsuspended Ezekiel Elliott as your RB on your bench because you're not knowing if he's playing or not. You might want to put Carlos Hyde in as a flex or as an RB2. You never know. There's always different circumstances where, you know, you can't look at it at the beginning of the league and say, this is how it's going to play out. The projections are the real numbers. No, projections are projections. They're just guesses. That's how people should do or how they could do. No one knows until these game whistles blow and these players start playing, and if they're going to have a good game or bad game, if you're going to get a lot of points or little points. No one knows until it happens. So stay on it. Check your lineups. Check your news. Do it weekly. Do it daily if you have to, because information will come out Wednesday for practices. They update the injury statuses Thursdays, So keep on top of it. And then if you do, make sure that you have a good lineup, that you're setting them, and you're taking in everything into consideration. You're winning. You're winning your week, and 1 week of wins, you can roll that into the next week. Get wins in that week, get a win the week after that. Next thing you know, you're a powerhouse in your league, and people are just floored because you're the beginner, and they're not expecting you to do well. They didn't expect you to do any kind of research or be on top of player news and injuries and, rain delays or anything like that. So go out there and, put some effort into it, and it's going to pay off. You're going to, break into the playoffs. So if this kind of helped, if you got some kind of a better idea of how you should, set your lineup, that you should be setting your lineup and paying attention to whatever's going on that week with the players you have and maybe the teams are playing against, like and subscribe and let me know, tell me how you did that week, and let me know at the end of the season how you did, and if this kind of helped propel you into, the playoffs, better for me, because I feel good, because all I want to do is help beginners, because I've been in your position where, you're going up there with friends and they are just relentless in all the crap they're giving you because you are making all these rookie mistakes. And the point of this is just to kind of temper down those rookie mistakes. The less rookie mistakes you have, the better year you're going to have, and the better record you're going to have, and the more fun you're going to have. So enjoy this week of football. Right now in this video, week 1 is about to start tomorrow, the very first game. And I'm looking forward to it, and I hope you're looking forward to it too, because it's been a long time without regular season football, and I can't wait for it to start. So thank you.